Hey, I was digging through some old files and I found some live recordings I did, some YouTube lives I did back in the old days. Those are not anywhere on the channel, and they're also not in my old archive or vaults collection. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put one up here. I'm putting this on the front end so people know this is not a new video. This was filmed in, I believe, December of 2020. And I'll probably put something on the screen to indicate that as well, so as not to confuse people. But this is an old video, but it is an old live video I did back in the days when I used to do those live streams periodically. So I hope you enjoy it. Talk to you later. Bye-bye. I did see 50 in the room a split second ago, so I pulled the trigger. Anytime past 12:45, we got 50 in the room, I'll go. So I see a discussion here already started without me, so hey, I'm feeling left out. But yeah, today is the 20th of December. The solstice is sometime tomorrow. It shifts around because they actually call it by the exact minute. And so I think it's like 10 o'clock UTC. And I'm guessing that's, 3 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern time tomorrow. But I don't know. I don't know. All I know is it shifts around. So right around the 20th, 21st is usually when the solstice is. And of course, it's almost solstice. So what are you going to do? Carl Lind checking in from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, where you guys have got snow. We do not down here yet. We had a little bit of flakage in the air, and it covered the ground, made it look nice and picturesque, but it all melted. So Dixie Champagne checking in from where she is. Thank you very much. Jay Felix from Cincinnati. Got a lot of friends in the Cincinnati area. Thank you very much. Dave Beto says, hey, maybe Steve's out doing a McNuggets run in the Viper. I took the Viper out last week, but not this most recent week, but a week from yesterday. No, I've not eaten McNuggets in it since that one time I did that up in Bad Axe. So good times. Mindbend, hiya, Steve Lehto. Hiya, Mindbend. Thank you for checking in. Stephen Shaw, it's raining here in Bath, Ontario. How appropriate. We have a town in Michigan called Bath as well. In fact, there was a disaster in Bath where a guy blew up a school, killed a whole bunch of people, quite a while ago. So crazy story, but I've never heard of Bath, Ontario. But you don't have to shovel the rain. That's the good news. Chris Mason, what's up, Steve? Same old, same old. Science Girl checking in. Good morning. Thank you for checking in. Richard R. is checking in from Minneapolis. Carl's Corner, New York City has snow. I've got some friends in New York. I haven't talked in the last few days, but I understand that New York got hit hard with the snow. So that's not good. Guy Lee, hi, Steve. Lindenwald, because he has a very nice pronouncer there for me in the house. How you doing? Doing good. Doing good. Thank you for the pronouncer. I like that. Dr. 44, DST 44. Hi, greetings from the Netherlands. And again, I like when people check in from other countries. Good to know that the internet has that kind of reach. Amateur shooter from Arizona. Hello, how you doing? I'm 6 under W. Hey, from Olwine. Less than awesome Indian summer here. Is that Iowa? Olwine? I might be mispronouncing that. Sorry if I am. Retired Butcher Boy checking in from Lincoln, California. Lincoln, California. I'm not sure where that is. I'm assuming it's north of LA somewhere, but I could be wrong. Scott Wojo suggests that people who live in Bath are all wrinkly. Arto Hiltonen points out that the winter solstice technically is tomorrow. Yes, it is. That's why I titled this Almost Solstice. And let's see here. Carl says there's also a Bath in New York. I wouldn't be surprised. Bath is a nice short word. And if there was a nice, pond or something there, somebody might think it's a nice name for the area, or especially like Warm Springs, maybe. So Mark Rockola, Northern Minnesota checking in. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate that. David Persons. Hey, Steve. Every time I see that name, I think David Pearson, who is a NASCAR driver. I interviewed him a while back. He was a very winning NASCAR driver, but he lived primarily in the shadow of Richard Petty. And there was a period of time where if Richard Petty won a race, David Pearson came in second. David Pearson won the race. Richard Petty came in second. It happens so often. That was a joke in the sports writing world. that Petty Pearson or Pearson Petty was always the top two. They weren't always, but it seemed that way. They were both quite productive when it came to wins. So Chris Cab checking in from Huntsville, Alabama. Very cool. Just My Track checking in from Chicago. Hey, Steve. Hey, Just My Track. Thanks for checking in. Haven't been to Chicago in a little while. One of my publishers is there. I've been there a few times on business and also just hanging out. It's a beautiful town. Love Chicago. Chicago is the town that many other cities wish they were. You go to Detroit and you go to Chicago and you look at Chicago and go, okay, if Detroit could be kind of like this, it'd be really cool. But it's something to aspire to is what I'm saying. So there you go. Brian Ekdahl, ring a ding ding, Big Daddy. Larry Pearson from Pendleton, Oregon, checking in. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate that. Matthias, by the way, Matthias, I've got some correspondence with you that's in the mail. Trust me on that. Wintersonnenwende in German, because they like their short words. The Germans and the Finns both make words by just tacking things on or crunching them together. So Panzerkampfwagen, that kind of thing. And there's something neat about it because it makes words have very specific meanings that you can look at the word, and if you understand the basic root elements, you can figure the word out. So Fred Stewart is a Bath, Ohio, home of Hale Farm and Village Historical Park. Sounds cool. Chris Mason, hey, Steve, what type of music do you like? I like a lot of music. We've talked about music before. I'm a big fan of a variety of kinds of music. But like, for instance, like recent music, I've seen Blue October play several times. I've mentioned them here before. I saw Puddle's Pity Party. I wore his shirt a couple days ago. I've seen him perform. I tend to like singer-songwriters or bands with original material, although there's exceptions to every rule. The only thing I'm not really into is country music. I just never got into it. I'm sorry. I know there's a lot of country music fans out there, but I've worked in several different genres of radio. I played oldies for a while. I've worked at a rock and roll station, and I can find good music in almost any genre. So I do like music. I listen to a lot of music, also on YouTube as well. So Guy Lee, I had an uncle named Larry and his brother David, which Steve just mentioned. Oh, Larry Pearson. But is it the same David Pearson? Robert Penzick says Chicago has a traffic problem. Chicago's also got toll booths everywhere. It's insane. I understand you can get the things that'll get you through the transponders and all that. But I remember the first time I drove through Chicago and I was stopping at every single one of those booths to flip somebody like 15 cents. I'm like, this has got to be an inefficient way of doing this. Richard R., have you seen The Professor and the Madman movie? I've not. I tried. I tried watching it, and it's about the making of the Oxford English Dictionary. I read the book. It's based on. It's a fabulous book, and the story of the making of the original Oxford English Dictionary, which, by the way, I've got these down here, are a later edition, but the first edition of the OED was a pretty big deal. And The Professor and the Madman is a telling of that story. It was made into a movie. I started watching it, and I actually kind of lost interest in it. And there's a few movies that have done that. I was disappointed because I was really looking forward to it. So what can I tell you? Mark Rockala says, you throw away the rappers. I like all variety of music as well. Oh, and I like country. Well, here's the deal. I can even find a couple rappers I like. It just depends. I like some of the Beastie Boys. I actually had Run DMC. I bought the first NWA tape, and then later I bought this CD of it. I don't listen to it a lot, but I appreciate it. And I would argue and say that in the history, and this is going to be an unpopular opinion, but what can I tell you? It's my show. It's my microphone. I can say anything I want. In the history of rock music, I would argue and say that the album Straight Outta Compton by NWA was one of the groundbreaking moments in popular music. So that if you were to look at music going all the way back pre Bill Haley and the Comets, okay, before anybody even thought of rock and roll music. Think about back when it was like, how much is that doggy in the window? Okay, from that point forward, there's only going to be a few moments that actually radically seismic shift changed music. And one of them is NWA Straight Outta Compton. And the reason I'm saying that is it was very, very meaningful music made by people who are trying to say something very, very important. And it took on a whole bunch of different things, which often happens with big events like that. And so, unfortunately, it spawned rap, gangster rap, which a lot of gangster rap is just disposable garbage. But their album, that one, was actually very, very meaningful. So that's what I have to say about that. Jay Felix, WLEWAM is country, isn't it? I believe it is, although when I was there, the AM was country, the FM was beautiful music. This is WLEW Bad Axe, Michigan, the radio station I worked at originally when I started my radio career. And they have since changed the FM over to a more middle-of-the-road radio music approach. And the AM station, however, is more of a full-service, small market station, so that they have not so much a focus on the music as they have a focus on the information and the news that the station delivers. So I suspect they play some music, but it's not a lot. And I'm pretty certain they still have shows like Ladies Line, where for an hour people can call up and say I've got something for sale, or I've got a garage or an announcement, and news and grain reports and all that stuff. But yeah, when I was there, I played country music. So Doug Jones, Steve doesn't like country music because the dog usually runs away. And by the way, and it's an old joke, and I've heard this, I know you've heard this before, but the old joke is that, they talk about if you play, rock and roll music backwards, there's all kinds of satanic messages. But if you play country music backwards, you get your car back, you get your dog back, you get your wife back. Actually, you get your truck back. So Arlo Hilton then says that the next sunrise in Finnish Lapland will be Saturday, January 16th at noon. And I suspect the daylight's gonna be really short, right? Isn't that how that works? I got a friend in Alaska, and he's told me stories about how complicated it is just to adjust to, entire days of darkness or entire days of light. He has children, and he was telling me about, how do you get a kid to go to sleep when it's broad daylight out, and he's, putting tinfoil over his windows and stuff. So Sarah Callahan, hello all, happy Sunday from Michigan. It is a happy Sunday in Michigan, I'll tell you that right now. Lisa Chrétien checking in from Macomb County, Michigan. A lot of Michiganians in the audience. Paul Van Santvoort, 123. Steve, will you do a video on qualified immunity as it appears to be under discussion? Yeah, there's actually a couple things right now popping up with immunity regarding like police officers who appear to be able to do anything they want and get away with it. There is noise at the Supreme Court level that the Supreme Court might be considering striking it down, because quite often immunity is a judicially created concept, meaning that there's no law that started this. It was some court rulings. Now, some states have got laws that created that and followed through with it. But there are some states now passing laws that will define it and narrow it. And so it is popping up in the news a lot. I'm kind of watching because of two different developments. One is, I think, Colorado with a statute out there, and then also with the Supreme Court. So one of these days I'll do a story on it. It just depends on how it pops up. Philip Collier remembers those Muzak stations. It was liberating to find the original songs. The funny thing is, the station that I'm talking about, the beautiful music station, the FM, when I was there, was in essence a Muzak station. They got these big reels of tape. It was automated. Big reels of tape, and you put these tapes on, and there'd be 100 songs on one tape. I don't know how, and a ton of songs on the second tape, and there'd be tones on the tapes to where the songs would start and stop. And the big machine was there. It would play a song, and as soon as it hit a tone, it would play a jingle and then play a song off this tape. And as you rotated through the tapes, it would mix the songs up in some kind of mixture. But mostly it was literally like, here's the instrumental version of Nights in White Satin. Here's the orchestral version of, Louie Louie. I mean, I'm joking about that. But that's what those stations were. And every market used to have those. I remember when I think it was 96.3 in Detroit. I could be off on that, but it was WJOI, and it was Joy Radio, and they'd have an announcer come on, like, and now here's Nights in White Satin by the Bill Johnson Orchestra, and it just but there was a market for it one time or another. So the chat on the right locked up on me. Tiger Stripes. Linda Ronstadt said that she wanted to record standards because she wanted to get them out of the elevator. That's funny. Yeah. David Battles, we had the Living Strings does Barry Manilow album in our radio station. Every radio station had the dark closet someplace where stuff would get left, and they hate to throw it away. And when I was in Bad Axe, one of the guys showed me a record album that had been made, and I think it was Richard Nixon visited Bad Axe and actually flew in to the Bad Axe airport. And I forgot if it was when he was president or vice president, but he actually came in and visited town, gave a speech to the Rotary Club, and left. And the radio station had covered it, and it was so important at the time that they actually had records pressed of it. It's like, Richard Nixon's visit to Bad Axe, Michigan. And the fact they made records out was pretty cool, but I listened to it, and it was not exactly a spellbinding recording. So Don Store 1, KMET, Los Angeles. I'm actually reading a book right now. It's an old book it's called This Business of Radio Programming. And it's written in the late 70s. And I saw it someplace, I think at a garage sale or maybe in a used books online or something. Paid a couple bucks for it. And it's funny because it's horribly outdated. It's talking about doing audience research, trying to get around Arbitron and things like that. But the guy throws in all these names of radio stations and disc jockeys from back in the 70s and 60s. It's actually a little time capsule. It's kind of fun. So I'm having a lot of fun reading that. So D. Wood, remember John DeRemus? Yes. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. And you're close on the name. I think it's Doremus. I could be wrong on that. But John DeRemus was a kind of like a middle, that beautiful music kind of host. And I'm not sure whether he's from Chicago. I looked it up once. I remember looking this up. And he was a guy with a great voice, really, really smooth. He sounded friendly. He sounded knowledgeable. And he syndicated a 1-hour program. I remember the John DeRemus tapes. And at the radio station when I was there, I believe it was the 10 o'clock hour. When you came out of the news at 10 o'clock, instead of going back to beautiful music, it would go to John DeRemus. And John DeRemus was on a reel-to-reel that you got a box of them. And he would often, he'd come on, introduce himself as John DeRemus. And then he would often say things like, there was a cat in the news. So I got a couple songs here about cats. And he'd play songs that were themed like that. And it was really, really well produced, really, really well written. And the guy had such a good authoritative voice, it just sounded good. And then at the very, very end, he'd always have some little tidbit of advice or something to say. And he'd end it going, put that in your pipe and smoke it. And that was the out cue to let you know that the John DeRemus show had just ended. So. Duncan Campbell's in the room. Of course, Duncan is from Australia. I'm always looking for Duncan. So I think there's a weird time shift there. What time is it? It's 5 a.m. right there? Or anyways. Oh. Mindbend says, Jerry St. James did a show from atop the Uniroyal Tire. Really? I didn't know there's anything up there. Anybody who visits Detroit knows that as you come out of the Detroit Metro Airport and head east, you pass this huge tire by the side of the road, and it's actually, I believe, an old Ferris wheel that they built a tire around to advertise tires, and it's a landmark. So I'd be curious about that. I do know, for instance, if you drive down Woodward Avenue at 12 Mile Road, there's the Shrine of the Little Flower, a very, very well-known Catholic church, and there's a big tower that you can't miss. And the tower is this big stone tower. And at one point in time, a guy named Father Coughlin was the priest there, and he was the radio priest. And they broadcast his Sunday services nationwide. And he got to be so big and popular that they actually built that whole structure there using money that was raised by the radio show. And there's also a radio studio in that tower. At least I know there used to be. I don't know if it's still there or not. But by the way, Daniel Kester says, is the Canadian Robot Lady in? And right below that, I see Canadian Robot Lady saying, hey, CyberDoc, thanks. Yeah, she's here. She's here. So, John Michael McSee, what are you asking Santa for this year? You know, I'm at the point in my life where I don't ask Santa for stuff. He asks me for stuff. You know, I don't know. I have people who tell me that I'm hard to shop for because quite often if I want something, I buy it. So, you know, I haven't really thought of anything just yet. So what can I tell you? Dustin, what's the story with your Florida license plate? Someone got that for me and sent it in. Same with that one there, and that one there, and that one there. So a lot of these are just gifts that viewers have sent in. Lehto's Law is not a real license plate. I don't think you can get that many letters on a Florida plate to begin with. But I think that someone got that. I think you can order that as a novelty sort of thing and send it to me. And I appreciate that. So it's just there for giggles, as we say. Wildman Jeff 42. Hello, Mr. Lehto. Love the channel. Well, thank you very much. Dustin, I'm in Florida. Okay, there you go. By the way, JP is in the room, who is from Canada, and Canadian Robot Lady is from Canada also. And we've got a good number of Canadian friends of this channel. And I have to tell you, I got another angry comment yesterday because I had referred to something happening in the US, and I said it also happens in Canada. And I'd said America. And I said, well, it happens in America. It also happens in Canada. Canada's America. You boy, are you ignorant? Don't you understand that? Canada is America. And I always say, you know something? Ask one of my friends from Canada. They consider themselves Americans. Stephen Shaw is a Canadian too. And I suspect you would not say, oh, by the way, I'm an American. I think you'd agree with me that you are a Canadian, right? Juan Peralta in the U.S. Does citizen mean you were born in the U.S. or got the certificate, or does it mean anyone living in or visiting the U.S.? No. Citizenship is specifically described in the Constitution, but there are often things that refer to people in the Constitution. So, for instance, constitutional rights are something all people have, okay? So if you visit America and you get arrested, you have all the same constitutional rights that a U.S. citizen would have. However, that doesn't make you a citizen. So to become a citizen, there's several ways to do it. The most common way is that if you're born to American parents, you are a U.S. citizen. You can also become a citizen. You come to America and you apply for citizenship and you go through the process. And if you go through it, they swear you in, you become a U.S. citizen. So I know that one of the big arguments they're having right now is with the census, because the census generally counts how many people are here. And there's been some debate about whether they should be counting non-citizens. And the census counts people. Now, what you do with that data is another thing altogether. But the point is that if there's 10 people here and 5 of them are citizens and 5 of them are not citizens, well, there's 10 people there. Okay. And if you want to get technical, then you count how many are of each, maybe. I don't know. But the point is that you don't go, oh, well, there's only 5 citizens, there's only 5 people there. Well, you might want to know how many people are actually there. So Mind bend. If Canada is America, why do I need a passport to cross the bridge? Meadow says Michigan is north of Canada. Yeah, a little bit. A little bit. The city of Detroit is due north of Windsor, which, of course, causes a lot of people to laugh when Journey, Steve Perry, sings about a boy born and raised in South Detroit, which is the only direction that you'll hear West Detroit, North Detroit, East Detroit, never South Detroit. South Detroit's technically Windsor. So JP says, I've been counted in both the US 2020 and the 2010 census as a Canadian living in the US. Exactly. And the census gathers data. All it is gathering data. And then they use that data to figure things out. And so in case somebody goes, gee, I wonder how many people are here from Canada. Well, the census might know that. So Betty Boop points that the Canadians are more polite. That's probably true. Newsflash, Steve, you are now the governor of Michigan. What would be your first area to address? Ooh, that's a tough one. Haven't thought about that. The interesting thing is that the one big problem I had was with the tax foreclosures, but they've appeared to they've straightened it out at least on some level. I think I would lean on the legislature to fix the Consumer Protection Act, because the Michigan Supreme Court struck it down a couple of years ago. Now, our Supreme Court just changed in its makeup, and they might reverse that, but we'll see. So it's a big job. I'd have to think about it, especially because I always say I'd never get involved in politics. I would hate to be an elected official almost anywhere, because to me, it wouldn't be worth it. Pure German Bloods love the show, Steve, from America's Dairyland. Is that Wisconsin? I'm just curious to know what you consider to be America's Dairyland. D Wood, always like going to Canada, great places and people. Yeah, it's been a little while since I've gone to Canada. I passed through Canada, not this year, but I did it last year, driving to New York. But Doug Jones, the song American Woman by the Guess Who, caused quite a stink from Americans. You know something? I remember that song, but I don't remember too many people being upset about it. We just all assumed Randy Bachman had a bad experience with an American woman, which is very believable. Carson Keller says, don't feel bad. Pennsylvania roads have a lot of potholes too. Yeah, you know something? The potholes in Michigan are epic. Although, everybody claims theirs are the worst, but Michigan's are really bad. Oh boy. Yeah, Bender Fender and a couple other people pointed out civil asset forfeiture. Yeah, I would actually, that's something I would immediately do, is I would abolish civil asset forfeiture if I could. I'd try to get the legislature to abolish it with me. Criminal asset forfeiture, like I said, still makes a little bit of sense, but not civil. Crispy Critters, I'd make the Dodge the official car of Michigan. Yeah. So, the president's motorcade, and they've got the vehicle that he's in, the Beast. I'm not sure what the Michigan governor drives around in. I'm sure it's the state police provide an escort the way the Secret Service does for the president. But I'd have some fun picking out vehicles, I guess, to see what's in the motorcade, right? Pure German Blood says, yes, sir. Being from America's Dairyland would be what's on the license plates. Hey, and if it's on the license plates, you got to believe it, right? Chris Chaos, Steve, do you know if jet skis in Florida are protected under a lemon law? Referring, of course, to personal watercraft, we call them, because I think jet ski is a Kleenex. It's a brand name. I don't know, but I doubt it, because most lemon laws, most of them are cars and trucks. And then some states add things like RVs and so on. But even like boats, for instance, you think it'd be a lemon law for boats, but no, so I don't think so. But I would check. But I mean, you could very, very quickly find a summary of Florida's lemon law by going to Google and typing in Florida's lemon law summary, and you find out. Crispy Critter says Illinois doesn't have potholes. We have trenches. Awkward pause. Here in Arkansas, we see your potholes and raise you a portal to Narnia. That's funny. Betty Boop, did Johnny Knoxville visit you? No. He and I have corresponded. He told me he was thinking about driving through Michigan. He's got friends here besides me. And I think he's going back to Wisconsin because I think that's where he's from originally. And I told him to look me up if he's in town. But the problem is that one of the places he wanted to go to is a restaurant. And most of our restaurants right now are closed for indoor seating. Lee Harvey says, go through the Sioux Locks in a pleasure boat. You'll find that Canadians are as rude as California drivers. I'm curious about that because I was looking into whether it was theoretically possible to bring my canoe through the Sioux Locks. And it turns out you can do it. I think you have to do it on the Canadian side. So I know that I think technically any boat with a motor on it can go through the locks on the Canadian side. So I've gone to the locks on a tour boat before, but it's been a couple years. Troll Slayer says there's North America, South America, countries on both. America doesn't really designate USA unless you're talking nationally, and citizenship, the main groups, after all, we are the lower 48. Yeah, what's confusing to people is the thing you call yourself is what we call a demonym. So somebody from, Germany is a German, right? So somebody from America is an American. And if I say I'm an American from America, you don't go, he's an American from Canada? No, I'm referring to the USA. No one says I am a USA citizen. Where are you from? I'm a USA citizen. No one says that. And it's understood. And so some people think that Canadians get offended that we've usurped the use of the word America. No one cares. No one cares. Tiger Stripes, what's your favorite Christmas movie? Well, I like the one where Ralph gets the BB gun. It's a classic. And the Fragile Lamp. Douglas Brown, hey, from Little Rock. Thanks for checking in. Carl's Corner did a canoe in the locks of New York State. It was fun. Cool. Yeah. I the only thing I worry about, of course, is that the way the locks fill up with water, there's obviously a big current underneath where the water comes in. You'd obviously have to be, clear of that. Yeah, Carson Keller, The Christmas Story. Yeah, I haven't watched that. I don't think I've seen it this year. But it's good. And it's always good. I mean, it stands with repeat viewing. The Ref, Lisa Chrétien says, it's been a while since I saw that. I forgot that was a Christmas movie. That's a good one. I like that one too. By the way, the Canadian Robot Lady mentions that she likes that movie also. But I mentioned also, and I'm going to give you a shout out here just so I don't forget. I mentioned that I'm going to do a year-end show. So on New Year's Eve, if you got nothing better to do. Hey, Bob, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. If you got nothing better to do at New Year's Eve, turn on your phone, turn on your whatever device you watch me on. And I'm going to have a show that's going to be a premiere. So there'll be a chat box here for us. And the show is going to go up, and it's going to be me counting down the top 10 videos of this year. That is videos that came out in 2020, which 10 were the most popular. So the countdown is going to be a slightly different format than a typical video of mine. And so I'm going to be talking about 10 videos, but because it's a countdown, and I used to work in radio, and my announcer, Heather, also used to work in radio, I asked her to voice for me the countdown. So I'll put that all together, and I'm going to try really, really hard to time it so that it times out to where the show ends right at the stroke of midnight. That's harder than you think, though, because the problem is that I'm pretty sure you can only put up premieres, I think, at the half hours, full hours, or quarter hours. So 15, 30, or 45. And that means there's also a 2-minute thing at the front end for commercials. So it means I have to make it 28 minutes long and schedule it for the bottom of the hour. Or I can do the math. I'm a busy man. 13 minutes and run it at 45. But I'm thinking it'll be 28 minutes. So again, a bunch of editing is going to go in just trying to make it the right length. But it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. So again, I don't expect everyone. I don't go out on New Year's Eve. I haven't in years. And what I do on New Year's Eve is I wait till the clock to hit midnight so I can log on to Detroit Free Press Marathon website and enter the marathon. So they open up the marathon entries at midnight, or a second after midnight, January 1st. So I always stay up. I register that night, and that way I go to sleep knowing I've registered for that year's marathon. I got 10 months to train. So what I will do is I will do the top 10 countdown. It'll be already done, but it'll go live and premiere leading up to midnight. And I'll know in advance, probably the Sunday before, I'll be able to say, by the way, here's how it's going to work, what time it'll go up, and so on. So I'll remind you of that as well. Daniel Kester, are you hydrated? Yes, I am. I haven't started this yet, but I will when I have to. Mark Hoover, make it your normal 2-hour live time. We can pad with chatter. Yeah, but the problem is that I can't mix all the elements together. Producing it makes it easier for me. Carson Keller, are they having the marathon this year? Well, we're hoping they have it next year. The 2020 marathon got canceled. It was in October, and they canceled it. So, Joel Kirschman, you submit your taxes on January 1st like Ned Flanders. Oh, I'm always reminded of that when he's going through and describing the taxes and how he likes to just, if he overpays, that's okay, because the government can do more things with the money than he can. So, G Vogt says Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve. I'm in. Well, it's going to be New Year's Eve. New Year's Eve. So, Don Jackson says that Mexico is part of North America. Yes, they are. And I believe that the official name of Mexico is the United States of Mexico, correct? So they would never call themselves Americans. I have a sneaky feeling in that one. Oh boy, I had the problem again where the discussion locked up on me. JJ CEO Ford, did you ever have a French teacher like Willie the groundskeeper? Oh boy, something. It's kind of funny. I go back and I watch the classic Simpsons over and over again, and there's so much gold in some of those early episodes. But I can tell you that when I was in high school, junior high actually, I took French for 1 year. Had a guy named Mr. Titchener, Carl Titchener, really really good guy, great guy, fun teacher, and I took French for 1 year from this guy. The next year he left, and they brought in another French teacher who's right out of college, and she's a hardcore French teacher. And she came in on the first day of French 2. She starts asking us questions in French, to which we all looked at her quizzically, and she realized, she goes, "Have you guys really had French 1?" Whole bunch of us just dropped out right then because we realized it wasn't going to be fun that year. So, Canadian Robot Lady, do you have any behind the scenes details about the BBC video? Not really, because that's what I was talking about in the video. Although I should probably explain one thing that I've had a lot of people ask me about, because my friend Nate, who is a good friend of the show, contacted me and said, "Steve, I'll convert the video for you, no problem." He put a ton of work into it because he converted it and he wanted to make it better, and it was a lot of work. So I have the whole video. The whole video is a half hour long. So I've had people say, Steve, why do you post the entire video? And the problem is that it's copyrighted by the BBC, first of all. So I know people take copyrighted stuff and put it up on YouTube. Well, it's not mine, and it's not right. So I've had people say, well, why don't you just take it and talk along with it, and that way you can say it's fair use? Well, again, I don't know how entertaining that would be, but I don't want to go there. But the other problem, and really this is what causes it, is that there's music on it, and music gets flagged by YouTube, it's not even involving a human. They've got every video you upload that they run through a bunch of filters, and one of the things it's looking for is music. And so if you watch the video that I did post, when they introduce me, and I'm walking along and I hang a right, and I turn in front of the camera, there's music playing underneath that. That's a small snippet of an Eminem song. And the problem is that if I ran a longer clip of that, the filters would pick up, oh, that is a licensed song, and boom, I would get flagged. So I didn't want that to happen. So the rest of the show is fascinating, but literally I showed you the only pieces I'm in. And I don't know if the BBC will ever put it online. I don't know, but that's their job, not mine. So Nigel Carruthers, have you ever gone into court with lots of hearsay and conjecture like Lionel Hutz? Even better is surprise witnesses, each more surprising than the last. I could get permission from the Queen to post it, Carson Keller points out. I assume that if she signed off on it, I'd be good to go. I don't know. So, Dustin, what made you want to start a YouTube channel when you started? Just curious. ZKR99, did I miss anything good? Of course not. Back to Dustin. I worked in radio for years. I was a disc jockey, then as a talk show host. When I stopped being a talk show host, I thought about doing a podcast. I started doing podcasts, and originally these were podcasts. And then somebody suggested I should film the podcast and put them on YouTube. And I thought, why not? And then it took off. So I actually never set out to do videos on YouTube. And in fact, I've been pulling down a lot of my older videos because I think that they're just kind of redundant. There's probably a better word than that, but I'll use that one for now. But the original videos I shot for YouTube were shot on a GoPro camera, mounted on a desk right in front of me, about this far in front of my face. And I'm not using a microphone this good. So, they're decent. And some of them actually have good numbers. But I just started doing them originally as a podcast. And I was doing one podcast a week. And I did that for half a year, maybe a full year. And I remember when I got like 1,000 subscribers to my podcast, I go, wow, that's big. It's huge. Oh, boy. So Bender Fender points out that there's another guy who bought the rights to a song and still had his stuff taken down. Well, that's the problem, is that the whole area of who owns what rights and who's got the right to take stuff down or put stuff up or license stuff, it's a pain. It's a pain. And trying to straighten that kind of stuff out is not worth the effort. And so my concern was that I'd put the video up, it would get flagged and taken down, and then I also run a risk of getting, strikes against my channel, which I wouldn't want to do either. So Doug Jones, Dr. Hibbert or Dr. Nick? Are we rating the super hunks? Or are we talking about who we'd rather go to for medical help? Because don't forget, although Dr. Hibbert's probably a better doctor, he's the one who did not catch the fact that there's a crayon lodged in Homer's skull, because every time he held the x-ray up, he put his thumb right over where the crayon was. See? So There's a lot of incompetence floating around there in Springfield. Blah, blah, blah. Congrats on 149,000. You know, I don't like to talk too much shop here, but I've actually crossed 149 a couple times now because every so often YouTube goes in and they broom out dormant accounts. So YouTube accounts that haven't been logged onto for a long, long time will often just get deleted by YouTube. And so I've actually seen my subscriber count go like this, and all of a sudden, and don't get me wrong, one or two people might unsubscribe from time to time. But when you're averaging, 50 to 100 a day, and all of a sudden one day you lose 75, and I didn't do anything different. What's the difference? What's the deal? Duncan Campbell, did you get my email about the low-flying owl? Yes, I got several people who sent that to me. The story about a guy who's driving a truck and an owl flew into the truck through a window, and I forgot if it hit him or, anyways, in all the confusion, the guy got in an accident, and there's a owl sitting on the dashboard. But without the imagery, it wasn't that good of a story. I mean, it was a great story, but I'm saying I couldn't turn it into a video, so I didn't do that. So. Paul Van Santvoort says, hey, BBC copyright could be a new video for Leonard. Are we referring to Leonard French or somebody else? American-made jewelry from Dobie's Designs. Is it possible to sue myself? You laugh, but there are cases that sound a lot like that. One of the best examples, of course, is John Fogerty from Creedence Clearwater Revival, who at one point in time lost the rights to his early catalog, started writing other music, and was sued by the holders of the rights to his original catalog and claiming that he was plagiarizing, in essence, himself. And there are other situations like that as well. So, Daniel Kester had his windshield broken out by an owl flying into it. Oh, that's too bad. I assume the owl wasn't... The owl probably didn't make it, right? That's sad. I like all birds. I like most birds, as long as they don't do things like go into plane engines and so on. Joel Kirschman, as Americans, do we have to follow British copyright laws? When in Britain, yeah. When in America, we got to follow American copyright laws, and I suspect that the BBC's got their stuff copyrighted here too. John Michael McSee, any idea how I could get on the list of the weirdest things that happen in Florida? You'd have to get very creative, because nowadays, if you were to, I don't know, climb into a dumpster and wrestle an alligator over a raccoon carcass while the dumpster's on fire and the whole thing rolled in front of, I don't know, a live broadcast of Good Morning America, that might not make the local news, because that's just, we've seen that before. So I don't know. Dave Beddoes' coworker had an eagle come through the windshield of a vintage Barracuda. Wow. That's a bunch of crazy stuff there. Crispy Critters, Prince sued his own record label. Oh, that's a common one. But the interesting thing was that John Fogerty was accused of plagiarizing himself. And by the way, the court disagreed. In his case, the court said, the guy sounds like himself. That ain't a crime. J.A., did you get my email about the guy who copyrighted or patented the word heathen in the U.S.? It must have been a trademark. I think I did. I'm not sure. It rings a very faint bell. Some of these things I get from more than one place. But I actually just watched, there's a really good documentary. It's available on Amazon Prime and a few other places, called The Patent Scam. And a guy got sued for allegedly violating a patent. And he got so angry about it that he did a documentary about what it's like. And it's scary. Now, there's been some slight patent reform since then. But I mentioned before, I did a video about the guy who patented the idea of swinging a swing from side to side instead of front and back. And he'd done it to prove a point, that is how easy it is to get a patent. And after I did that video, a bunch of angry people contacted me who are patent attorneys. But it's an interesting idea. But one of the problems with patent law is that you can come up with a really dumb idea, and as long as no one's patented it before, you might get it. So people have patented some really silly things, including using a stick to play fetch with your dog. Somebody patented that, and the patent office approved it. And it's like, wait, it's an obvious idea that people have been doing for like thousands of years. Yeah, but it wasn't patented before. So I'm not going to go off on a dissertation about patent law, but that was the point of the video. So the documentary is called The Patent Scam. And of course, I like the word scam, so you got to like that. Song Yardbird, I've been binge watching old seasons of Survivor. You know, I did that before. Every now and then, I remember when like it was the Outdoor Network, was it OLN, back when that existed, and they showed early seasons of Survivor. I stopped watching the Survivor a couple seasons ago, but there was a time when I watched it a lot. I enjoyed the show, but the show went through a really weird phase where they stopped bringing on regular people and kept bringing back the same people over and over again, and it lost that point of, you know, this is what happens when just 20 people would get stranded someplace. Well, it's the same 20 people over and over and over again, and it just got to be stupid. But that's why I like the earlier versions much more than the later versions. Ram 50V8, hello, Steve. Late getting to the show. Had to do an emergency water pump job. Oh, wow. Did we just talk about water pumps? Jeopardy 4100, a bunch of angry people who are patent attorneys. Are they angry because they're patent attorneys? That could be it. And the funny thing is, I wasn't saying that they themselves are wrong. I was saying that the system is wrong. You should not be allowed to patent something that everyone's already thought of. And we've heard of these stories where somebody patented the idea of putting things in a list before you go to look for something on the list. And oh yeah, sure, it's a great idea. Everybody does that. Jerry Mitchell says, I've been binge watching Pink Floyd reaction videos, and they use the whole songs, and I understand the reactors get no money, but the band and label are getting paid for the views. Yeah, see, what happens is, if you use a song in a video on YouTube that's not yours, but somebody else's, the filter picks up that there's a song in there, and the song is owned by somebody. They'll notify the person who used the video to say, okay, you got a song belonging to somebody else. You can either take the video down, or we'll simply send all the money to them. And at which point, it's like, why did I bother making the video? American-made jewelry from Dobie's Designs. Can I copyright patent attorney? No, you want to trademark it. You want to trademark it. A copyright is simply just a set of words that you put together for the first time yourself. Trademarking is when you have the words that no one else can use without your permission, depending on the context. Bender Fender, documentary I watched, there's patent troll-friendly judges. Yeah, in fact, a lot of patent cases get filed in the Eastern District of Texas, and at one point in time, the two judges there were the parents, literally the fathers, of two of the most prolific patent attorneys who filed the cases. So they're filing the cases in front of their own dads. And it went on for years. So, now Canadian Robot Lady's talking about The Men with Sarah Callahan. Mark Doherty, a musician friend, keeps getting her original music claimed by others. Yeah, that's the other thing about the process on YouTube, and that's one of the reasons I stay away from a lot of these arenas, simply because you don't want to get involved with it. You know, what do you do when somebody says, "Yeah, I own this music"? I mean, how much time do you want to invest in fighting over that? You know, so. Retired Butcher Boy, how did the Happy Birthday song ever get trademarked? It was copyrighted, but yeah, no, that was a crazy story. That for many, many years, if you wanted to put the song Happy Birthday into a commercial setting like a movie, you had to pay somebody who claimed they owned the rights to it. And the song's been around for over 100 years. And there were people who were skeptical of that, but the rights were owned by a huge publishing company that would sue you. That's why if you went to Applebee's and they sang Happy Birthday, they didn't sing Happy Birthday. They sang some made up stupid song, happy, happy birthday, happy, happy, and they would never sing this actual song, Happy Birthday. And a law professor put out a law review article explaining the legal history of Happy Birthday. And he pointed out that there's no way that this copyright could possibly be enforceable. And so somebody using his law review article as an outline took him to court, and a judge struck it down and said, no, that's public domain. Anybody can use that now. So it's a fascinating story if you're interested in history or copyright law. So, and Titan Uranus says, yes, even waiters singing Happy Birthday in restaurants were somebody that were worried about that. So, ZKR99, what do you think about the poor man's copyright registered mailing to yourself? It's idiotic, but I think I actually did a video on that. The thinking is that if you don't feel like actually investing the postage and the filing fee to send your copyright to the feds, you take your copyrighted material and you stick it in an envelope and you mail it to yourself and you just keep it unopened. And that way you can always prove based on the copyright that you actually wrote this at some time or place. And there's a whole bunch of problems, not the least of which is, who is to say you didn't mail yourself an empty envelope, or an envelope that be open and sealed. And so I've never actually heard of anybody using one successfully, but it's something that a lot of people say they do. If you want to, go right ahead, but I can't imagine it's terribly useful. Tiger Stripes. It's interesting because the two ladies who wrote Happy Birthday are always credited when it's used in a movie. No, when you lose the copyright to something, you don't lose the songwriting to it. I mean, you don't get royalties anymore, but you are still credited as the creator. So there are books, for instance, that were written by famous people that are now out of copyright. So if you want to, you can make copies of books and sell them yourself. And so be able to collect money off the song, no. But did they write it? Well, they claim they did. There's even a dispute about that. Tracker 001, you don't open it until you're in front of the court. So you file a lawsuit against me and you claim that I've infringed on your copyright. And I say, no, I haven't. Prove it. What do you do then? You file a lawsuit against me? And I say, prove it. We're going to actually go to the morning of trial and you're going to open your thing up in front of the jury? Iron Angel Forge. Oh, dang, I finally caught a live stream. Have you actually run in the 24 hours of Le Mans or Lemons? No. Someone sent that into me. I'm fascinated by the concept, just haven't gotten around to it yet. UK Paul, hello all. Hello, Paul. And Quentin Wilson points out that if you show up, you're on time. It's like I like to tell you, if you run a marathon and come in last place, you still beat everyone else who didn't run. Jerry Mitchell's about to go reread The Myth of Sisyphus by Camus before the Browns versus Giants game tonight. Seems appropriate as a Browns fan. Bender Fender, they found that the same chords used in Happy Birthday. Well, it's not just the chords. It was the actual song itself, the melody, was apparently used as a song called Good Morning to You that had the exact same structure. Good morning to you, good morning to you, good morning, dear so-and-so, good morning to you. And a teacher just said, oh, let's change good morning to happy birthday. And so the song is probably one of those, they could, call it traditional. So Sarah Callahan, have a great day. And everyone, and Steve Lehto, going to have pizza at Kensington. Really? It's a little chilly for pizza at Kensington, isn't it? Kensington's a large park along 96, west of Detroit a little ways. It's across the highway from Island Lake, which is a fun place to go mountain biking. You can ride a bike at Kensington also, but those are paved trails there. Yeah, Tiger Stripes points out in this, I read a little bit about this. Disney has stopped paying Alan Dean Foster, who wrote all the early Star Wars paperbacks, which are still in print, because Disney says they bought all of the assets, but not its debts. But yeah, and the problem is a huge corporation like that will spend millions of dollars to litigate something to see if they might make a couple $100, you know? Daniel Kester wants to know, with a video that I did about the kid who sued his parents for throwing away his collection of adult materials, would it have made a difference if the material contained stuff that was not legal? And it's an interesting question then, because remember, the stuff didn't belong to them. The court found it belonged to the son. If there was something in there that they discovered was bad, they should have called the police. And if the police took it, that's a different story altogether. But it's not what happened. But, you know, we can speculate all we want. Fred Hill, in a nutshell, why didn't the Supreme Court hear the case out of Texas or the other states' elections arguments? I have to admit this is going to be speculation on a small part, because the Supreme Court issued such a short ruling on the Texas case. They did not explain their rationale, but I believe I'm on strong footing to say this, that most legal people, attorneys, people who study the law around elections, believe that the Supreme Court, which sits atop of our structure of federal courts, it can also hear cases from state courts, but think of it this way. So every state has a state court system run by its own Supreme Court. Michigan Supreme Court, Ohio Supreme Court, New York, not the Supreme Court, Court of Appeals, and so on. But there's a Supreme Court at the top of every state court system. And most people believe that the final arbiter, the final entity that gets to rule on how a state runs its own elections is its own state court. So that the election in Michigan is overseen by the people in Michigan. If you got a problem with that, go to the Michigan Supreme Court. People in Ohio got a problem with their election, Ohio Supreme Court. And it's uncommon. And I understand that Bush versus Gore was a Supreme Court ruling on a Florida issue, but that's a very unusual case, which I won't go into now. But I think that most people think that if there really was a big problem in Texas, that they could have filed an action in the Texas Supreme Court or tried to get it there. They may have tried that. I don't know. But I think that's what most people think the rationale is behind why the Supreme Court declined to hear the case. D. Wood. Remember George Harrison and He's So Fine, the chiffons, and My Sweet Lord. Yeah, one of the most famous of the copyright infringement cases when it comes to music is the song My Sweet Lord, and the old song by the Chiffons, He's So Fine. And it's one of those things that if you listen to them both back to back, you can hear a similarity, you know, but is one really ripping off the other one? It's so hard to say. And there are a lot of songs out there that are like that. And there are some that are very, very obvious. There's some that are not. And the weird thing is that to litigate one of those cases takes a lot of money. It's a pain in the rear. And I've read stories about this, different cases that have gone up like that. But generally speaking, it almost always boils down to the jury. And a jury comes back and goes, yes, jury comes back and goes, no. And there's no way to tell which is which. There was the case not too long ago. I jump around so many different topics here. That, oh boy, Pharrell, Happy. Well, Pharrell had worked on the song Blurred Lines with the other guy. And they got sued over that song by, I believe, wasn't Marvin Gaye's estate? Because there was a song by Marvin Gaye that sounded a lot like it. And they lost that because on the stand, Pharrell admitted, he said, yeah, when we were trying to like produce this song to get us into the groove, because we were listening to Marvin Gaye. And a jury looked at that and said, oh, so you were listening to Marvin Gaye and you came up with that? Pfft, of course, So, yeah, Canadian Robot Lady says Robin Thicke. There you go. No wonder I didn't remember it. He's not a musician. Nigel Carruthers, do you think Jimmy Page stole Stairway to Heaven? Personally, I assume you know about Led Zeppelin's problems with authenticity. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, most Zeppelin fans know this, that many of their early songs were just stolen, outright stolen from American musicians, blues guys from the old days. And they've had to go back and recently fix a bunch of the credits on their early albums to reflect that. But it's scary. But as far as Stairway to Heaven goes, that's the one that the guys from Spirit said that they thought it was a ripoff of their song Taurus. And if you hear the song Taurus and its opening, it sounds a lot like the opening of Stairway to Heaven. I think the song is going to diverge after that, though. And so I don't know that the Stairway to Heaven was stolen from Taurus, but it wouldn't surprise me they stole it from somebody because they stole everything. And that's not to take away from Led Zeppelin, by the way. Led Zeppelin had, the members of Led Zeppelin, what they did were shockingly good. I mean, they were very, very good. So they're just a little weak on who they stole their music from. Canadian Robot Lady points out that Robin Thicke's dad was a Canadian. So, yeah, well, you get some credit for that, but I was never a big fan of that song. Oh. Kevin in New York, The Lion Sleeps Tonight by the Tokens and a bunch of other people. And I'm familiar with that story. And that is one of those amazing stories. Somebody did the research on that. I read that recently. I forgot where it was. But some big magazine did a huge, huge story on that. The Lion Sleeps Tonight. You've all heard it. I think it got revived for The Lion King or something also. But it was a huge, huge hit in the 60s. A bunch of different bands did it. And it was always credited to a bunch of different people that didn't make a whole lot of sense. And they discovered that there was a recording in like the early 1950s from Africa where some guy sang the song, the chorus to The Lion Sleeps Tonight. That's without question the origin of that song. And somebody brought the record to America, and somebody else heard it, wrote a song, and forgot to credit the original guy. And it was strange because in later years, somebody put it together and goes, wait a second. This song came from this song over here. I wonder if this guy ever got compensated for it. And they tracked down, not him, he passed away, but they tracked down some descendants of his. And the weird part is that there were apparently some times when even the record companies knew there was a problem. And so they'd actually credit it to different people and say, oh, no, it's actually this. And at one point in time, I believe Pete Seeger was listed as the songwriter of that. And he had nothing to do with the actual creation of that song. So very, very crazy story. The Tokens, Dave Beddoes points out, the Tokens had the most famous version of The Lion Sleeps Tonight, but it was covered by a lot of people. John Michael McSee, what is the logo on this shirt all about? This logo? It's the Peloton logo. So this is your all-purpose Peloton. So it's a comfortable shirt. Wemo Song Yardbird points out, yes, those are the lyrics which get repeated ad infinitum in The Lion Sleeps Tonight. Wemo And I don't think lions actually sleep, but hey, what can I tell you? Ronald Knight, hey, Steve, I'm back. Took a lunch break, and he does, of course, call me The Steve. David Ward says the South African singer's name is Solomon Linda, and that rings a bell. Tiger Stripes. Compare all of the first Star Wars to Kurosawa's Hidden Fortress.
I've seen Hidden Fortress. It starts off with two people walking along arguing. One tall, skinny guy and a shorter, stouter guy walking along arguing. It's the craziest thing. And you're watching it going, wait, I've seen that before. Oh. CIXWNCRXWN says lions do in fact sleep, but do they sleep while singing a Weema Wep? And are they sleeping at night? I understand the song's not a documentary, okay? Robert Allen, have you seen the video of the ice hockey kid being arrested in Calgary? No, I have not. I've heard about it. It's one of those things that faintly crossed my radar this morning. I did not actually see it, though. I will try to look it up. Song Yard, but all I know about Blurred Lines is I have to get up and dance when I hear that song. And it also made a huge start of Emily Ratajkowski, who was apparently the woman in that video. And now she's become an Instagram star. I don't know beyond that what you call her, but David Ward won a case against Facebook, albeit strictly via email, but his account was re-enabled today. So was your account disabled at one point? My understanding is that dealing with Facebook or YouTube are pretty much the same thing, or Amazon for that matter, trying to get anything straightened out. Good luck just getting hold of a person. Tiger Stripes, I think that like most cats, lions sleep about 80% of the time. And Nigel Carruthers does ask, how mighty is the jungle? Because the lion's sleeping in the mighty jungle. That's true. That's true. Donnie D, what about when they would sample pieces of other people's music into their own, like Vanilla Ice did with Under Pressure? How are they able to do that legally? Well, they weren't always able to do that legally. There were people who got busted doing that who did not have permission to do it, and it often ends up badly because if you get caught after the fact, you're over a barrel. And so the funny thing is anybody who heard Vanilla Ice's Ice Ice Baby knew that was Queen of David Bowie being ripped off. There's no question. I've seen interviews with Mr. Ice where he claims that he thought they changed it just enough to get away with it. But the Verve Bittersweet Symphony is the one that samples a piece of a song written by the Rolling Stones, but performed by an orchestra. And they actually went and got permission from the orchestra to use the sample. And nobody got the rights also from the songwriter, which would be the Rolling Stones. And so that song became a huge hit. And when it did, the Rolling Stones music company came out and said, hey, we never got any money for that. And they wound up paying way more than they should have for that. So ZKR99 actually points out that lions don't live in the jungle. Yeah, actually live in the plains, don't they? I mean, occasionally you'll see them lounging near some shade or something, but I think they live out more in the open plains because that's where the food sources are. Fred Hill, what is a Detroit pizza? You get a different answer from anybody you ask. I don't know. Yeah, the savannah. I'm thinking I called it the plains, but it's a lot of open area, but with spotty trees and shrubs around, but a lot of open grassy area. Betty Boop loved the Verve. There's also a band from Michigan called the Verve Pipe. It's one of those rare examples where two bands formed unaware of each other, I guess, and had names very similar, kind of like the English Beat and the Beat. Although I'm not sure if the English Beat, they call themselves the English Beat in England. I never quite knew that. So Mike Levy says, we were just discussing Peloton. Refresh my Facebook feed, and there's a Peloton ad. Yeah, it'll do that. It's listening to us right now. Rico Kemp says they've been watching you for over 3 years. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. You've hung out this long. Yeah, Ricky Hendricks says that I need to say they live on the Serengeti in a slow, deep voice. Problems I haven't got a slow, deep voice. They they live on the Serengeti. It's the best I can do. Dixie Champagne, speaking of the Lions, what's the score on the game? Are they playing right now? I really don't follow them. I really don't. Oh yeah, Guess Who and The Who. Another thing of bands with similar names. And Mr. R points it out, as does Dave Beddoes. Yeah, the Verve, Bittersweet Symphony. Dixie Champagne, doesn't the fried dough in the black metal pan constitute Detroit-style pizza? You have to understand that Detroit, for the most part, Michigan, Southeast Michigan, is home of both Domino's, Little Caesars, and Hungry Howie's. There's a couple others. I'm not sure how widespread they get outside of Michigan, but Domino's and Little Caesars are the two crimes that Michigan's committed on the rest of the country. I'm apologizing for us right now. And I remember I was in California, and a guy in law school goes, Steve, what's with that? I don't know. It's a coincidence. It's a coincidence. But I mean, there are good pizzas out there, but just not Domino's or Little Caesars. Oh boy. Dan Diet, have you had any suits regarding the Corvette wheels cracking? I have not. I did have a suit. Actually, 2 cases I worked on involving the Z06's overheating, but none of the cracked wheels yet. Rat Bread, were you able to see the Aurora Borealis a couple weeks ago? I did not, but I know that I've got friends in the Upper Peninsula who could see it over Lake Superior not too long ago. So MJC says, I think the Verve was sued by the Rolling Stones over Bittersweet Symphony. Yes, that's what I was talking about. And the problem is that in Bittersweet Symphony, there's a piece that they keep playing over and over again, and it's a sampled portion of a song by the Rolling Stones being performed by an orchestra. And they got the rights to use the performance, but not the song. So, very complicated. Song Yardbird says she's got a Lehto's Law mug that she's drinking coffee from. By the way, I know some people are starting to think I'm making stuff up here. The Lehto's Law mug and the shirts are for sale on Zazzle. I finally sold over $100 worth. I haven't gotten the check yet. I went online the other day and it goes, you will get the check 15 days after the end of the month in which your $100 limit is first reached. So I crossed the $100 mark in November. So they're not going to mail me the check till December 15th. And so apparently they put a check in the mail to me a couple days ago. So I should be getting a check now for I think $104 or $105. If I get it this week, next week, considering how much I use my hands, I'm surprised I don't hit this table more often. I'll come in next week with the check. We'll discuss who to give it to. I'm thinking either an animal shelter or something like that. It's $100. It's not going to change anybody's life, but it might help some good cause out. So there you go. JB Weld's waiting for sushi. I never, ever got into raw fish. I don't know why. It scares me. Lee Harvey, what's the current inventory on the Murder House book? Oh, by the way, I had a whole stack of them in here last week, didn't I? They're all gone. They're all gone. So moved them all out very, very quickly. Doug Jones, Steve's becoming Canadian as he's apologizing. I've always been a fairly polite person, I like to think. Just don't get in front of me in a traffic circle and stop. Mark Robertson, sushi is both very good and actually healthy. I know I know that's true in theory. There's just something about uncooked meat that it causes something in my head to go like, I don't know. I admit I've never tried it, and I might never try it. I don't know. So, Canadian Robot Lady, which books did you sell out last week? All of them. Gone. I literally I have an empty shelf in the living room where my where my inventory was. MJC Jets Pizza is the best. Jets Pizza is good. I also like Cottage Inn. Cottage Inn is good. So Wolfman 971 says my copy of American Murder House is stuck in Pittsburgh somewhere. You know, normally I mail books and I forget about them because my success rate on mailing books, I've sold 700 or 800 books by mail off this channel. And I mail them and everyone gets them. I had one book, and a guy contacted me and we figured out what happened, and it was a screw up, probably not on the post office's fault, but at the place he had it delivered to, because it was delivered to one of those mailbox, et cetera type places. That's the only book out of 700 that didn't go through. This time I saved the receipts with all the tracking information because I shipped out, I'm guessing 70 books, 75 books. And I'm just thinking with the way things are nowadays, don't know. So if you got a book that you paid for and it doesn't show up in a couple of weeks, you can contact me using your zip code. I can find out whether or not, tracking it is, and then I can track it. So I'm paranoid now because the post office has been getting so inefficient lately. Boycat Sapiens, have you ever eaten fried morel mushrooms? No, I have not. I've seen morels in the wild. I've seen people picking morels. I know people rave about morels, but I've never actually eaten a morel. Now that you mention it, do they taste like regular mushrooms? I mean, I like mushrooms. Dustin says that I could donate the check to the Human Fund. I could run a charity. And as Brian Fullerton points out, it is almost Festivus. JD Weld, how hard is it to self-publish? It's easy. It's remarkably easy these days. There's a self-publishing thing you can do through Amazon, Create Space. There's a couple others out there. And if you are relatively good with a word processor, you basically type up your manuscript and you run it through a program that conforms it to the way that the publisher wants it. And then you can do it as an ebook on Kindle, or you can do it as an actual paper book with CreateSpace and get it listed on Amazon. The hard part's not writing the book. Hard part's not publishing the book. Hard part's selling the book. I know people who've written books, put them up, and they go, Steve, I've sold 2 books in 5 years. What am I doing wrong? It's like, well, it's selling books ain't always easy. So, D Wood, what size T-shirt do you wear? Thinking about sending you one. XXL, 2XL, XX. I know I've had people say, Steve, you don't look that big. I appreciate that. Thank you. I'm tall. I'm 6'2". So I'm sitting at a desk right now. I'm not standing on a phone book. And X large will sometimes fit me if it's generously cut, but XX will always fit me. So go with XX. And if you have a choice, darker colors are better. I think people send me shirts that are white, and I can wear them, but the problem is if I wear a white shirt on camera, it screws up the settings on the camera, throws a lot of things out of whack. So more often than not, you'll see me wearing dark shirts. So you have a choice. I prefer a dark shirt, but again, beggars can't be choosers. Betty Boop says, Steve, donate it to your local charity. Well, you know something? I talked about it here. You guys are the ones who bought the stuff from me, so I want some input on it. So I'm going to work with you guys on it. No big deal. Mark Heil, did you ever receive the letter you mailed yourself? Did I mention that here? I mailed myself 2 letters. The second one I received. The first one I still have not. It's been over a month. And I mailed it from the post office that is physically closest to my house. So I don't blame the post office. I understand the post office was meddled with recently. They've also had their funds cut. They're mismanaged. They're overworked. And I think they're being overwhelmed right now because so many people are mailing stuff that normally wouldn't be, or they're ordering stuff. And so I don't blame them, but I'm looking at it going, I wonder where my mail's gone. Because I've had people mail me stuff. I never got it. They never got it back. Where did it go? Is there some big, like Area 51 was a mountain of undelivered mail they're going to get to someday? Or what? I don't know. I mean, but literally, I mailed myself a letter a month ago. Haven't gotten it. And it's not a problem because I ran it through my printer. It was typed perfectly. I photographed it to make sure so I could later say, like, here's the date I sent it, and also make sure I got the address right. I know my own address, but you'd be surprised. And haven't gotten it yet. So there you go. TG Green says, I think I'm dead and you guys are part of my backdrop of reality. Can we test this somehow? I'm not sure how we would test this. Because this is very, it's almost like, an Inception kind of thing. Or Sixth Sense kind of thing. I mean, who knows? Eric Linneman, regarding the post office, stop tracking. It's in the hands of God now. That's good. That's good. Oh, boy. Lee Harvey suggests that you could take your sushi roll, dip it in beer batter, and deep fry it for 5 minutes. I suspect it no longer considered sushi. I am wondering, though, who the first guy was who said, hey, I wonder what this tastes like raw. You never know. Dustin, do you own an airplane? No, I do not. No. I haven't got that kind of money. I know guys who do. A very good friend of mine owns an airplane. Another attorney I used to work with had a dual engine airplane. And I know how expensive they are. That is a hobby that makes boat ownership look like nothing. I mean, I know guys who own boats. You do the math and how much it costs them and how little time they get to use it. No, that's amateur stuff compared to an airplane. Airplanes are a whole different thing. So, but no, haven't got one. In Asylum, have you ever heard of people selling winning tickets to law firms? You mean like lottery tickets? No, I've never heard of that. I've heard of somebody who won a lottery and didn't want, this depends on the state, by the way, but they didn't want their identity to be discovered. And in some states, you don't have a choice. They're going to hold a press conference and hand you a big check. And good luck getting off the stage without getting just, harassed. But some states, you are allowed to remain anonymous. But there are also some states where they don't care the form of ownership that is presented to them. So you can take your winning lottery ticket into a law firm and say, this is my winning lottery ticket. I don't want anyone to find out who I am. And so what the law firm will do is they'll create a trust. And then you put the ticket into the trust. And then the law firm contacts the lottery official and says, we've got the winning ticket. It's owned by this trust. And I, am employed by the trust. I will come in and take care of everything for you. And so then what happens is, if they're going to announce who got it legally, they go, well, it was a such and such trust. And you can't figure out who that is. So that keeps it anonymous. I've never heard of anybody selling the ticket, though. Wild Bill 57 says The Sixth Sense is the best movie I ever watched. I would never watch again because I already know the ending. Well, but it can be fun to watch the second time through because even though you know the ending, it's interesting to see how it was done in such a way that it still makes sense. I've not watched it a lot of times. I've watched it more than once. And that's one of the things that's really brilliant about that movie is that it's got the big twist at the end. And of course, they show you some of it, but you understand how it all worked out, right? But watching it the second time through and knowing what you know, you realize, wow, this guy put some real thought in how to tell this story. 90 knots. Hello, Steve and everyone. 90 knots shows up just as we're talking about airplanes. What are the odds? Mention airplanes on a Sunday, 90 knots shows up. Gregory A. Parsons, try the cost of owning a helicopter. That's got to be even like exponential compared to an airplane. Especially, well, I suppose it depends what kind of engines it's got and so on. Think about a turbine-powered helicopter. just put money in a blender and flush it down the toilet. Rockpile, can you explain your connection to Boulder, Colorado? I don't actually have one. I've got friends in Colorado. Kurt and Laura. There's a couple in Colorado, Kurt and Laura. And they started watching my videos years ago. And I used to, the t-shirt thing kind of happened spontaneously. And I think they sent me a note and said, hey, if we sent you a shirt from Colorado, would you wear it? I said, sure. And next thing I know, they sent me a couple of shirts. I wore them. And they thanked me. And they sent me another note and said, if we sent you some more, would you wear them? I'm like, keep them coming. I don't care. Right now, I've probably got, I think, about 20 t-shirts that are Colorado, Boulder, Colorado, schools out in Colorado. And most of them were sent in by just the one couple, Kurt and Laura, who are just doing their best to just, get the word out about Colorado. Is this on straight? There you go. So that's the connection. I've been to Colorado. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. But my only connection to them really with respect to all the shirts is they were gifts from viewers, which I greatly appreciate. In Salem, I used to work on the turbine-powered helicopters, the Black Hawks. I could talk to you for quite some time, my friend. One of the guys who worked on the Chrysler turbine car program was a guy named Bill Carey. And Bill Carey worked on, believe it or not, in the military, turbine-powered helicopters. And at one point in time, he actually had some connection to working on Marine One, the helicopter that flies the president around. And then later he left and started working at Chrysler on the turbines there. But I'm also fascinated by military helicopters. The Hueys from Vietnam, for instance. So yeah, they're fascinating stuff. But yeah, you want to talk about expensive stuff to maintain. Boats, airplanes, yeah. Helicopters, off the chart. So, crispy critters, $2,000 to $4,000 an hour to operate. This is from a former helicopter mechanic. Brian Fullerton, the Bell 412 we rent for work is $30,000 per day and $1,500 per flight hour. Wow. Joe Cordero, hello from Buffalo, New York. Pass on airplanes, boats, and helicopters. Lisa Cratian, riding in a helicopter with all the doors removed is the best. Yeah, I've actually been up in a helicopter before, flying over St. Ignace during the car show. There was a guy there giving short helicopter rides. I think it was $20. Just go up and buzz around and come right back down again. And I had a camera with a big old lens on it. I was taking some nice aerial photographs of the car show. It was a lot of fun. I've also gone skydiving, but not at the same time as helicoptering. Oh, boy. Song Yardbird's got the song, The Lion Sleeps Tonight, stuck in her head. A weema wep, a weema wep. What can I tell you? 90 knots. My dad was a Black Hawk rescue pilot and flew helicopters in Vietnam. Very cool. Very cool. TG Green, what is your IQ? Ever tested? No, I have not. 100. No, I was kidding. Eric Linneman, would you buy the new electric Mustang? That's a toss-up for me. And the reason I say that is that I do like Ford, but what they did to the Mustang, it's really strange to me that they made it electric and four doors and call it a Mustang. That's just wrong. So what can I tell you? I'm looking up the title of a book here. Hang on a second. If I can find it. Come on. Yeah. So those of you who are interested in helicopters, look up the book Chicken Hawk by Robert Mason. And Robert Mason flew Hueys in Vietnam and tells some great stories about it. Very, very interesting stuff. So Doug Jones says the engine stops in a helicopter, there's no gliding to land. Well, you can auto gyro to some extent. Depends on the depends on the aircraft and how low you are and so on. So Stephen Shaw, test drive an E-Mustang before answering that question. Yeah, but at this point, why not get a Tesla? I'm just saying that I think that the idea that they have that Mustang is kind of weird to me. I hate to say this for the electric vehicles. I'm kind of liking the new Hummer. Now, they're off the charts expensive, but they look pretty cool. 90 Knots, fantastic book. Did you read it, Chicken Hawk? I read it a few years ago, but I remember really, really liking it. It's back here somewhere. Mike Levy, what are your thoughts on cities fining people for violating snow emergency parking restrictions? Because they give tons of notice and people still complain. That's the problem. If you're a snow truck driver and you drive a snow plow and there's a snow emergency, people have parked their cars in the street and you got to plow around them and stuff, it's a mess. Now, I know people in some cities go, well, I got no place else to park my car. Well, I think you knew that when you moved there, didn't you? But it depends. But I think that you're gonna get stuck with that ticket. Not much you can do besides pay it. So, Todd G, why didn't they just call it a four-door Thunderbird? G Vogue says a great book about helicopter pilots in Vietnam is To the Limit by a first Cav pilot. I'll have to check that out. JB Weld, Steve, is there anything fun in Menominee? It's a town up north. I'm not that familiar with it, so I can't say for sure. Menominee. It's like Manistee. Oh, I don't know. Not sure if I've ever been there myself. So, Lee Harvey points out that the Ford EV Mustang is blasphemy to U.S. pony car purists, or is it to us pony car purists? But I don't mind the electric vehicle. That's not what does it for me. It's the four-door aspect of it. Like, why would you make a Mustang four doors? I just don't get that. It's almost like they're building this. Something. Let's just slap the name on here and we can move on. But Mark Heil, how do you know if there's a pilot in the room? They will tell you. Oh boy. John Michael McSee, will Steve be getting the COVID vaccine? Yes, probably in October. I am not in any of the groups that gets to have it first. So I'll be one of the last people to get it, probably. The vaccine, that is. So, but yeah, I'll get it as soon as it's available for me, which could be way down the road. David Grimm, what is the worst car you know of? It's hard to say. There's so many bad ones. Torbar, 1974, they made a Mustang with a 4-cylinder engine with 88 horsepower. The Mustang has not always been a bright spot in Ford style. There was a couple years there where the Mustang was in a doldrums, shall we say. And they've done a great job bringing it back. I mean, the last decade or so, the Mustang have been amazing, but I just the 4-door thing just doesn't do it for me. It just does not do it for me. I don't know. So NB points out the Daewoo. They still sell Daewoo in America? I'm not sure. JB Weld, Soviet domestic autos. Or the Yugo, Jason Johnson. Yeah, the Mustang 2, Rick B reminds us. And at least they're kind enough to put a thing at the end there to let us know it's not a real Mustang, it's a Mustang 2. ugly things. Oh, boy. Rico Kemp, attorney should be last in line. Well, the problem is that I'm not a frontline person. I'm not an essential worker. I don't have any pre-existing conditions or whatever, things that put me in a high-risk group. I'm not in an old folks' home yet, so I'm just a healthy guy who's just young enough not to hit any of the cutoffs. So... Well, Bill 57 says no such thing as a 4-door Mustang. There's just a 4-door car with a Mustang moniker on it. And that's exactly right. Buff Del Campo says that Clinton bombed the Yugo factory. Is that true? I remember that we had some issues over there. So... Well, Nigel Carruthers says, what do you think of the new Mustang Mach 1? Are we talking about the Mach E, the electric one? And that's what I was saying. I don't quite understand calling a 4-door car a Mustang. But Mark Robertson, lawyers aren't essential workers? No, there's too many of us. Crispy Critters, the Lada is likely the worst car in history. I wonder if that's true. I know there's a bunch of cars that were made behind the Iron Curtain back in the day, which were not terribly well engineered. I'd be curious about that. Robert Lee, they built a 4-door prototype Mustang in '64, and Iacocca had it crushed. It wouldn't surprise me. You have to remember, there was a time when the big 3 automakers, again, Detroit, Ford, and Chrysler in Michigan, would actually think that you should offer a car both in 2 doors and 4 doors. So you can get a 4-door Chevelle. Yeah. And it's funny because I did a video, it's on my channel somewhere, where I went and walked around a steam-powered Chevelle that a guy built. And it wasn't running when I saw it, but the guy who had it was trying to get it running. And I met the guy, really nice guy. And it was a 4-door. And part of the story was that the guy had been talking to General Motors. Look, I have the technology. I can put a steam engine in one of your cars. And so they gave him a car to do it with, and they decided to give him a 4-door Chevelle. So on the one hand, it's kind of cool to have steam engine technology in his car, but it's a 4-door. It's like, what? It's a white 4-door Chevelle Malibu, And there was situations like that where you'd see a car and it's kind of cool, but it's got 4 doors, It's just not the same. Now, I've seen some 4-door cars now that they do a good job of making it, but when they take a 2-door car and somebody stretch it to put in it's like, not quite. Dave Beddoes, my dad had a 4-door Chevelle. Canadian Robot Lady is checking out. Have a great holiday week, everyone. Until next time, have fun. And thank you, ma'am. I appreciate that. She sent over to me the countdown clips already, so we're getting ready to go on that thing. Mark Robertson and Doug Jones are having a debate about helicopters losing engines over water and auto-rotating out and so on and so forth. Yeah, there are obvious issues with helicopters. But there's obvious issues with airplanes too. So you got to put something down fast, depends on which one you're in or where you are. So, and John Michael McSee, do you get your picture taken with Santa? No, haven't in a long time. So, hey, it is 2:30. I'm going to check out. I appreciate all of you. Again, next week, hopefully I'll have the Zazzle check, and also we can talk about the countdown, which will be, is that right? Yeah. We'll be talking about the countdown for New Year's, which will be that following after that. So until then, guys, hang in there. Appreciate it. And I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.